program is sponsored by Sue Minahan.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Get ready to find your free will from your roots in the stars.
Hello. Yes, here we are. This is December 26th, and I think I swam all the way here. It's just amazing. This is Talk Cosmos, and we're finishing up the year. And there's so many new changes. We're on YouTube. And some of the technology is just a little bit challenging, we might say, but we're very grateful and excited. So I sort of blipped in and blipped out, and I'm glad to blip back again. And maybe that's really what life is. It's like we're returning, but on a different note. So tonight we're going to be talking about two moons, as usual, with this particular moonbeam team. And the first will be in a few days. It's the full moon, a Cancer moon, December 29th. It's 8 degrees and 53 minutes, and that is going to be on Pacific time, 7:28 in the evening. And then 2 weeks later, on January 12th, initiating the new year of 2021, at 5 p.m. at Pacific time, will be the Capricorn New Moon. And it will be 23 degrees, Capricorn 13. It's always going to be later because in that archetypal period of time, for half a year, the full moon begins and then the new moon, meaning that it's later in the month. So it's going to be at a later degree. Now that will change, but that'll be months away from now. And then we'll begin with the new moon. Well, now it's time for the Moonbeam Team.
Relating to the sun and moon's energies, including the planets and the entire cosmos for the month's systematic 2-week intervals of the new moon and full moon, plus the annual 4 to 5 eclipses, this is your Moonbeam Team.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, certified astrologer, sacred healing counselor, tarotist, and numerologist, providing individual consultations, teaching and tutoring internationally, co-author of Gateways to Change, Keys to Navigating the Seas of Life, currently facilitating workshops in Marysville and Camano Island, Washington.
And I'm Sara Stromley, a craniosacral therapist and founder of Brain Body Therapy in Kirkland, Washington. I'm an evolutionary astrologer that incorporates different forms of horary, location mapping, and medical astrology into my practice. I enjoy uncovering flower and mineral frequencies that also support the mind-body coherence that aid in the healing journey.
And as Albert Einstein said,
Energy is never destroyed. Energy only changes.
Whew, ain't that the truth? That is so true. The Moonbeam Team, it's quite an exciting fact that we are now completing a year together on this monthly venture, and we are initiating this YouTube factor, although we're still a podcast for our audience. As heard on 1150 KKNW, there's always options. We're integrating life, right? That's what we're doing. And usually we kick off this talk with some little a highlight that on a personal basis has significance. And it seems sometimes as I relate my brain what's significant, it's a mantra that is never ending, and that's one of transformation. But this time it seems to be interconnecting on a vital depth, which when we look at these charts, and of course, for those that are listening, we'll try to describe that, and hopefully we will be able to share that chart with you. But that's overwhelmingly evident to me. And Sarah, what would you say? What would be your highlight that you might think?
Well, I think this lunatation, the full moon, I love that we're closing out the year with a full moon in Cancer. It's just so, it embodies memory and nurturing and strong intuition. And it's just further elevated with this sextile to Uranus. And just with all of these Uranian Aquarian shifts, it just helps us to really savor this point of reference that we have.
Oh, I like that, because authenticity, I think of that immediately. So we're going to change. Let's be the real deal, right? I like that. Yes. And Liz, how would you add to all of this? Or
Well, I
add
think
your
that
thought?
the next month, there's lots of changes that we're going to be making and adjustments. So kind of get ready for changes and adjustments. And this is an exciting time we're in because we're shifting gears. So that feels really positive.
I know. And I will jump in with one thought that, however we tie this into, when you say shifting gears, on Christmas Day yesterday, which I realize not the entire globe looks at Christmas, but we have all the holidays throughout the year, and it was the 25th of December here in the United States, that NASA they presented, it was an article that there's internet, quantum internet, talking about change, and the internet goes 1 trillion times faster. It's entanglement, and it happens instantaneously, but faster than the speed of light. So as a consciousness level, I have no idea what this might even present to us. When you think about the cosmic energies and discoveries, then have all these other ramifications, and that's what we're discussing. But Einstein, of course, he felt definite that no, nothing could go the faster than light. But here we are already with the grand mutation in Aquarius of social reset, and we're already talking about faster than light. So that somehow tied in with what you were saying, changes, Liz.
And change is inevitable. I mean, especially, and it's just so much more pronounced now with these aspects. And I just think things are going to be faster than we can keep up with, especially in the weeks ahead. And so savor this reflective time and clarify the things that we intentionally need to leave in the past, and use that awareness of what's expired to define what's required now, because we are entering a new era.
As significant here, just on this one indication of going visual with YouTube. So it's very true. Liz, you were kind of thinking there. Did you have a comment before we go?
I'm just thinking about the full moon on Tuesday. And for those that don't know, a full moon is when the Earth is between the sun and the moon. And so the sun and moon are opposite each other in the sky. And the shadow portion of the moon is not visible to our eye. So, just a little tidbit there. And full moons are a time of illumination, complete awareness. Sometimes facts are revealed. And it's a time to reveal and realize the fulfillment of our efforts that we've been putting forth. So things are moving forward or breaking down. It's a releasing time.
It happens every 2 weeks. We have a regular tide, just like the ocean here that I'm sitting in front of, that talks so much as it brings in the tide. But this one is in Cancer, which to me has such purity. Every December or January, depending on that type of month when the sun is in Capricorn, we're going to have this moon that's in its own sign. Of course, a full moon, I should say, because every month the moon that travels 13 degrees a day, every month it'll go through, I have to remember that, of course, it goes through Cancer. But in this time, it just speaks so strongly of everything that Cancerian, the nurturing, that you were bringing up, Sara, and home, our roots, our family roots, childhood, food, security. And it's really astounding. And interestingly, I don't know for those that can see this, can you both see the chart that I have pulled up?
I'm not seeing it yet.
No.
No, I
know
just
we're
did a
looking at that.
sharing. Well, that's too bad. Well, you can look on your own charts, but on this, and I have it at the Aries point, meaning 0 degrees. I wish you could see that. It says stop sharing. Well, at any rate, but
It popped up.
oh, good.
I see it now.
Okay, you can see it. All right. Then with this energy, because, okay, there's a couple of thoughts, because we can look at the chart, but it's just in a conversation with ourselves too. The fact that the lunation cycle, that 6 months ago, there was a solar 0 degree Cancer new moon, June 20th. It was a total eclipse on the solstice. I mean, when you gather all those details, the power of that is overreaching. And so, and I know we started to talk about the lunations, about looking back or forward. But at this point, because this is such a complex month that we're going to continue with, we'll just go back to that one consideration. So I say to you, if we can, and for both of you to continue thinking about all of us, how life may have shifted or what started from there that now we're regrouping. Or Liz, Sara, how would you like to further that idea?
Well, at that eclipse, Pluto and Jupiter were square Eris, and again for this full moon, they're still square. So it's like a continuation. It started, approximately 6 months ago. So bringing light to shadows is the words I would put with that. So, bringing things forward. So that's a really good thing. Unfairnesses and injustices, and righting some wrongs, perhaps.
That is so well said. I know we were talking about Eris before, because there's a standard way of looking at Eris, Eris, the goddess of discord, as she's often referred to. She was left out at a big party, and the Trojan War happened as a result. And now we've considered it more like inclusion. What do we need to include? I think, Sara, you were mentioning that in an earlier conversation of ours. So tying it together, it's so true. And I think about the last 6 months, and especially now, trying to really address you could say injustices by being inclusive. It's a huge theme.
Well, it's on personal levels and world levels and city levels and state levels. It's on so many levels that it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And with Cancer and the moon in Cancer in its own sign, its domicile, I believe our intuition and our instincts are highly attuned right now.
It's a good reminder to use that part of ourselves, not question it, but have some trust. I mean, listen to the signs.
Pay attention.
Pay attention. That's a good way of putting it. Sara, I'm sure.
I loved how you intuitively added Europa to this chart. And did you want to go into the mythology of that a little bit?
Yes, and to
Because
explain,
it's right on this full moon, and I just think that has some form of significance to it.
Well, and I will explain to our audience, Europa is a goddess now, and if you're looking at the chart, it happens to be 7 degrees Cancer and 31 minutes. So the moon happens to be 8 degrees and 53 minutes. So they are right next, conjunct. And that's what Sarah's, for those that are looking, and I'm circling it, it has this little figure that solar fire brings to it. Well, I did this because now I'm starting a little mini connections, which you and I, each of you will share with me at one time this following week. Every day there's a 10-minute thought. And what really prompted it was that fact that in the news, suddenly, I'm living in Kailua Kona on the big island of Hawaii as of recently in the last month. And Mount Kilauea, the volcano, erupted. We have VOG now again. And there's a glowing caldera. It's quite significant energy. And not only that, but Europe with England suddenly announced this pandemic had a mutation. Speaking of, grand mutation, and the nodes are in. I'm linking together some thoughts. The nodes, the lunar nodes here, which we look at, are immutable signs also. Of course, and the great mutation is in Aquarius, which is where up here in the 11th house right now, because it's a 0 degrees chart. And it's in an air sign, which means 200 years of air. So things are rapidly, air as an element connects with fire, and it feeds fire, and it has a great connection with water. It connects with all the elements. Fact is, I was wondering why England? Why was it the epicenter? And why both of these right on around December 21st, which was the solstice, and also the great mutation? It was both days. Well, come to find out, when I looked at the charts, they both have Haumea, which is in Hawaii called Pele, referred to as Pele, the goddess of creation and fire. But they both have their natal sun conjunct this. And I think, Sarah, you sent some pictures that your sister had sent, and other people I have noticed on Facebook sent pictures of the great conjunction for Jupiter and Saturn. And Jupiter had several moons visible, 3 of them, and one of them was Europa. And it made me wonder, again, the significance. There are messages. It's not just all linear thought. It's like the world speaks to us the best it can. So what did that signify? Well, Europe was speaking, and Haumea, anyway, there was a little talk I gave. So anyway, I brought in Europa.
Another thing that made the headlines is Brexit became official. This has been a 3.5-year multi-country, multi-leveled and layered, expensive divorce that's been happening with the European Union. And it's a really big deal. It affects the global economy. It affects immigration. It affects how things flow to and from, their border security stuff. And I thought it was really interesting. There was a headline, or part of the one of the references on the Guardian article I was reading was saying the UK is no longer the lunar pull of the EU, the European Union, which just spoke so loudly to this full moon.
Doesn't it, though?
Yeah.
Goodness, the lunar pull, because the moon is the largest gravitational pull.
I mean, the euro has just been crushing certain countries. It's just been really imbalanced for a long time. So there's a lot of countries that are very relieved this has finally been negotiated and has gone through. And part of the sticking thing that was also making headlines, I thought was very interesting, is there's it's described perfectly with Neptune and Ceres square the nodes of Gemini and Sagittarius. So the headline was that the Brexit was hung up on negotiating fishing rights and the maritime borders around the British Isles. So Neptune rules the ocean, Ceres harvesting, and Gemini's negotiation, Sagittarius legal boundaries. So I mean, you just can't make this stuff up.
No, it's significant. And that was beautiful. And for those that aren't looking at this chart or are looking at the chart, Neptune and Ceres is like that question mark with a line through it of matter. The line means matter, physical matter, but they're in Pisces, and the nodes here, this is a horseshoe up there next to Venus and directly across from the North Node in Gemini that stays. So it is like same degrees, 18, 18, and it's within orb. So it is a real tension struggle debating between the cultures, Sagittarius, the laws,
The fish and chips.
yeah, and well, maybe, yeah, and transportation, everything that Gemini offers, and all these signs have such depth, many layers of significance. So that's quite telling of itself. Another factor here, and I'll be anxious to hear Liz. I wish when I pull this up like this, sharing, I can't see you both, but I can feel and hear you. Is that that Mars is square and Eris down here, this little circle with the arrow, Eris, the goddess of discord, who is the sister to Mars, actually. They're conjunct and they're square. That means intention, 90 degrees, within a few degrees of Pluto, of that deep transformation, of really getting the inclusive action and our becoming, in Aries, it's identity. It's the new, what are we defending and what we're changing and in our boundaries. So all that links in.
Well, and that's been happening off and on in 2020, and it'll happen a couple of times in 2021. But that's also Pluto and Jupiter were conjunct at the time 6 months ago when we had the eclipse, and now it's just Pluto by himself with Mars and Eris. So Mars and Eris are brother and sister working together. So it's changed the dynamic a little bit. But you can think of Pluto and then Mars and Eris of, what needs to be changed. This chart has a lot of planets that are 90 degrees to each other. So they're not a bad aspect. It's just that we need to make changes or adjustments to things in the world within ourselves even. So it's on many levels.
And I do think so. If we look at the Great Conjunction, which is really in its very start, that means that every 20 years, Jupiter and Saturn here conjunct. They're in early Aquarius and ruled by Uranus and co-ruled by Saturn, but Saturn is part of the mix here. So let's look over here at Uranus, and it is in Taurus, which is a 7-year cycle, and we have about 5 more years. It's in the first 10 degrees, so we know we have quite a bit of time ahead of us. It moves slowly, but it's in Taurus where spirit descends to matter and its value system. And so if we look over at dispository to Venus, what was I seeing? Oh yeah, Venus. It's
square Neptune.
Yes, thank you. And so it's really trying to find the illusion between what's illusion, what's deception, how to imagine and ground it, right? Because
and then the moon is in a sextile to Uranus, so that's a harmonious aspect. So it's helping Uranus, maybe some unexpected turn of events with an unexpected outcome that works out better than we anticipated.
That is something good to remember. Here, I'm going to stop my sharing unless, Sarah, do you have any comments, or I want to look at both of you? Is that good? Okay, I will. I'll stop sharing. Oh, if I could find you now. Well, at any rate. Okay. So I think if I go like this and like that, there you are. Okay. Hi. Yes. It's so significant, these changes, looking at the summer, just to tie this up before our little tiny break in a few minutes. What comes to mind? Does something come to mind between June 20th and now that has hope and promise for what this new moon that we're going to look at after the break might offer?
Well, I think that like the inequities with people and the prejudices, it's like it's come to the front now. It's like I would say that everybody should be aware of it. I mean, the only way you wouldn't be is if you don't read a newspaper and you never turn on your TV and you never listen to the radio and have no social media. But now it's in the conscious awareness of everybody. So now we can make changes on it. And it's a worldwide issue. It's not just one city or one state or the United States. It's a world issue.
Yeah, and the idea of innovation, because I also did, Europe is fascinating. I think looking at the history, we have still Pluto in Capricorn, and Capricorn is tradition. And for the Western world, which is, West and East, but for the Western world, Europe really has so much that we still are conditioned by. And we can learn. For instance, the cities have changed over the years, and people have rebuilt and innovated out of disaster. And it isn't just Europe. I was just thinking of one of my other little mini connections that I did about a city and a tsunami in 551, because amazingly it relates to the planets significantly right now. And out of this, the nodes were the same. Neptune was the same. Pluto was in Capricorn. And of course, the Great Conjunction was in Aquarius. It was so significant. And the bottom line was cities transformed, because it happened to be that the tsunami ruined the city and silt came in, but people built on top of it. And the wealthy left the cities became very concentrated. So much of the Gemini North Node, right? And also elevating in a certain way, and also a lot of certain bit of trauma when you think of Aquarius too, with that Great Conjunction. But people would take these big homes that had been left and made multi-complexes out of it for more homes and housing, but priorities changed. We're in such a transition, that we think of the dynamics, people moving and new. So let's see. We better leave, and we'll be back. This is the Moonbeam Team, December 26th, with Liz Muschett and Sara Stromley and myself, Sue Rose Minahan. See ya. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the furthest visible planet by the eye. By leaving a cycle based on meaningfulness and truth, Capricorn's energy establishes social boundaries in a structure incorporating rules, authority, and ethics. As a cardinal earth sign depicted by a sea goat climbing from the sea up to the top of a mountain, Capricorn overcomes fears through goals and ambitions to achieve mastery.
Hi, this is John Foster, astrologer and software developer, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we understand how to implement our free will through the cosmos.
Want to hear something different from talk radio? Keep your dial on Alternative Talk 1150.
Hello, we're back again, and we're talking about the new moon that will be on January 12th, 2021 in the Pacific Coast time. That's 5 o'clock, and it'll be in late Capricorn, 23 degrees and 13 minutes. Of course, you can, let's see.
Sue, that's at 9 o'clock.
Oh, it's 9 o'clock? Oh, interesting. You know what? I will have to. I see that somebody's listening and very kindly and wondering about what that article was about the web being faster than light, the web. And I could have had that mixed up. I'm so glad to get communication from people. And I have all my notes somewhere. I will make a post to that. I will figure out. I wish I could. Oh, maybe those are all my notes there. Because it was, and I had it all on my website so that I could try to let people know this. It was I don't see it right off the bat. Sorry to say. It was NASA. It was December 25th, Caltech. If you Google that, I think, in fact, maybe I can Google it right now and just see what that would be. Caltech, NASA light. Let's see if I can find that out. Yeah, there's so many things, of course. I'm sorry about that. So I will have to look at my notes a little better in life. Okay. So thank you for listening. Thank you for contacting us. Shall we let's try to get this chart up that is the
new moon
the new moon
on
Capricorn New Moon.
on
Yes,
Tuesday,
exactly.
January 12th.
Yeah. Let's see. Try to do this. Anyway, for the rest of you, you can talk away at the moment while I try to navigate my technological. I think I can get it right. Here we go. Okay.
Well, and new moons are about rebirth, potential, new beginnings, time to start things. It's when the moon sits between the earth and the sun, and new moons start the new lunar cycle. It's a great time to set new intentions and make lists for the coming days, weeks, months, or several months. I like to wait until a day or so after the new moon, because then the moon has a sliver of light. And so to me, it is a symbolic image of like lighting a candle, putting light to my intentions.
Yes. And for instance, maybe make well, actually, we will work on that on one of our little 10 minutes, and we'll help people consider, because Capricorn is goals, and connecting with your goals can be on, as they know, all kinds of levels, but it's so much more. It's deconditioning, it's reconditioning. And looking at this chart right now, that new moon is within a degree. And meanwhile, I've been trying to find out what that article is, because it was Maurice Fernandez who posted that article. And I probably, in my reconnection here in Kahlua, need to get kind of better organized. So I apologize to people. But anyway, it was a fascinating article. So maybe it wasn't, because they said it was 100 trillion times faster than the web. So I think probably I got the gist of the idea. Maybe some of the technicalities I have off, but it was astounding. They've been working on that for years, but environment can be quite disruptive. And of course, it's through entanglement, meaning that the two physical bodies immediately connect at one point. So I got a lot of the information, but perhaps I did present it a little, but it is faster than light. And they did say that Einstein, of course, didn't like that idea. And I painted a picture of Einstein. I love Einstein. He's just was one of my heroes of all time. It's amazing how you latch onto somebody. So at any rate, there is some truth to it, but I may not have all the truth to it, like a court. So at any rate, so thank you. I hope that does help the audience. Now, going back to this January 12th chart up here with the strong Pluto, deep transformation that's just so connected, in the United States, we're heading towards our Pluto return in 2022. In fact, I did pull a couple of charts for that, but I think we'll stick with this.
Yes, the sun and moon being within 1 degree of that, it really highlights the Pluto. And the Pluto in this chart, a couple weeks down the road, is square Eris, where Mars is moved on and is closer to Uranus now. in a
Yeah,
few
Eris,
weeks.
goddess of discord that wants inclusion, that really wants to know what's the truth. Like her question was, who's the fairest of all? But that led into, I think, love instead of power and even wisdom.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention with this new moon, also conjunct Pluto, it's square Chiron as well. So it really adds an acute awareness of current limitations and gaps. And what I both admire and have concern for with this lunatation is the extent of the determination to make monumental changes to existing structures
Yes.
in rapid fire fashion, especially with Venus trine Mars and Uranus there.
Well, and it
Mars
was
being
Venus.
jumpy.
And Sarah, I love this, except if I understood you, and maybe I heard wrong, it's Venus square at 5 degrees Capricorn that's square Chiron. Not, I mean, it's in the new moon chart, but had you said that early on, or is that what you were
Yeah.
referring? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
somehow I missed that, and so I clarified.
No, the new moon's, yeah. Okay.
Because the new moon's 23 and Pluto's 23, but Venus is 5 and Chiron's 5, and it is very significant for everything
Yeah, that's
you
what I meant.
said.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to. It's just that the logic, if I'm following the logic, just like that other man,
Yeah.
and it is at the same time that it's in tension with our wounds of identity, of becoming, of Chiron, the alchemist. It's also in a supportive trine position to Uranus. And both of these, and why Uranus? Uranus is significant because, again, it's a dispositor for that great conjunction that we're moving.
Thanks for catching that. That was the string of thought I was trying to bring together, was the Venus and squaring that.
So recap a little what you were saying. It was brilliant. I just got lost in the detail.
Well, there's just a jumpiness, like to jumpstart either it could show up as an exciting new relationship or an encounter, or implementing, the start of new structures and investments that may be out of sequence to what may be found later to be more expensive than necessary. So I think, like an example would be like a New Year's resolution to get in shape with this vigorous new workout routine, and that can actually kill motivation if the recovery afterwards is more than what was bargained for.
Yeah.
And so it's just an encouragement to pace ourselves, but to keep at it, and to also, if we're including, considering who needs to be included in the planning and support process, because those are the people that could undermine us later if they're left out of the planning process.
I see. Well, it's true. I often think, though, we have a real dichotomy here. And of course, I want to be a supportive, energetic person but I also want to be very clear about the realities that we're facing. And right now we have people potentially losing all the support. There's a vast population that are not just thinking, if I may say, about how to get in shape. They're thinking about how to survive. And I think we need to be very cognizant of the totality of our of recognizing this and giving some indication of how that picture can also receive clues. Because I think it is, if you're looking for survival terms, like what was the conditioning that one was accustomed in their identity, that identity, their existence. It's that including networking, it's the support of the collaborative group, and rebuilding on those terms. It's really a new structure that we're looking at, and to realize just like those moons that were visible, like, oh, aren't they interesting? Well, wait a minute. Maybe they are telling a message. They're here visible for a reason. It's that whole new psyche of awareness, because Uranus is the awakener, and so is Aquarius. It has it's not all roses as we know. It can be traumatic. It's sudden changes. It's such sudden. Have we all connected with the gear shift? And where are we really heading towards?
Yeah,
So,
I just was, for me, it was more structure, form and structure, and structure of systems and institutions, kind of having jerky starts to implementing changes,
yeah,
by
very good.
jumping or just being clumsy with the process.
Yeah. And
So,
Liz, I know you're back there. What do you?
Well, I want to say that the Venus square Chiron is to be compassionate and loving to yourself, your neighbors, your community, and humanity as a whole as we're going through all these challenges, because there's lots of issues and problems to resolve, so it's, as we're going through that, to be really good with yourself. And then Neptune is square the nodes of the moon. And so I think it's really possible that we'll come up with some really innovative ways to change things. And with Uranus and Mars conjunct together and square the sun, moon, and Pluto, it's like we're all being really challenged,
Whew.
but we're going to make it through.
It's ignition. And I have to remember, we're
yeah.
projecting 2 weeks ahead. So this is true. We're in the climate. But that means that really, if we can release, well, it's not always just releasing, it's like refining. But to prepare, there's going to be a kinetic. I mean, if it's in Taurus, it's Earth.
Mhm. Well, and it's not just one issue, it's many issues, and many issues for different cities, different states, different countries. But I think we're all going to make it through, but just have compassion for ourselves and basically have brotherly love for self and others,
Yeah.
because that's really helpful, I think. So,
It is a compassion,
well, and in 2020, it's like how everybody rushed and Zoom took off and how to do things from your home. I mean, in a way, it seems like we accomplished 10 years of stuff in 1 year. And they came up with vaccines. I believe it's 3 or 4 companies. I mean, it's like amazing the feats that people have accomplished this year.
In all actuality, Liz, that's a very apt. And I suppose, if nothing else, North Node in Gemini, it is speedy. Maybe that's part of it. And it's also multiplicity. There's connecting, many connections. So it just thinking astrologically and all the mutable, and with Neptune here expanding, there's no boundaries with Neptune. So the potentialities and potential with Sagittarius, because this is an integration. I have to remind myself and others, we're not on a seesaw where we're teeter-tottering. We're drawing these together. It's like a collage, collaboration. It's really the name of the game.
Well, and the nodes shifted signs in June, I believe, of this year.
May.
So
It was May.
okay, the end
May
of May, I
6th,
think.
I
So
think.
it's like we haven't had it that long, but boy, things have just kind of like went from fast to fastest.
Yes, snowballed. Exactly.
Mhm.
And they probably will. And the suddenness here with Uranus at the stern, you might say, of this boat sailing off into the sky, trying to get grounded. I think of that so often, like the Peter Pan story. They're off there in the stars with Saturn and Jupiter.
Well, it's like people may need to pace themselves or give themselves a little time out occasionally and be okay with that.
Well, in Capricorn, that's always tricky, because one thinks of the goal and they put aside the opposite, which is that Cancerian nurturing self. But it's a good reminder.
And with Cardinal, kind of bouncing off both of your ideas, with Cardinal, it wants to initiate and push forward and So I would encourage embracing the Aquarian ideal of really embracing, like, you can get things done so much faster with collaboration, like light speed
Mm.
compared to, you know, getting out of these separate, isolated experts that are haggling amongst themselves in remote locations and never getting in the same meeting room, even if it's virtually, to hash it out and to really
You
get
know, and
resolved.
yes, reminds me. Last night on television here in Hawaii, there was a little blurb that went on about new traditions and a woman who was an immigrant, and she was saying that because I'm thinking traditions with Capricorn in this new moon, and she was saying to people that ideas that as an immigrant, she had to come up with new traditions, she and her friends, because they missed so many of the old culture, which really seems evident for us all. We all have a culture that we've left, that is common to us, whether we left physically or whether we're still at home. Like Liz was mentioning, we all know this. We've been living at home and we're trying to reincorporate it. But she gave an idea, and that sort of signifies what you were saying too, Sarah, is that, for instance, a mother and daughter, as one example, would weekly cook together the same meal on Zoom, like, oh, okay, as if they were in the same kitchen doing it. I thought,
Yeah.
well, that's a one idea. And interestingly, it's the opposite sign, is the Cancerian energy, mom, home, food, nurturing, everything is the opposite, because polarities do balance. So it's what you're saying is both very indicative here.
But a great idea when there's restrictions.
Yeah.
Sharing. Yeah.
And yes, and to
Count-
share and collaborate. That is the name of the game. Aquarian wants us to network. Yes.
Because there's always somebody that's better at something that you may not be, and there's things that you can bring to the situation that others may not be aware of or have the ease with at all.
Yeah. And if people are wondering, if they are looking at these strange little unusual signs here, I will say this little blue one that looks like an Asian temple is actually Haumea. I did that for my little talk. Haumea. Haumea is in the goddess of creation, also fire and spirit, because here in Hawaii, Haumea, Pele, fire brings, the volcano brings up earth, and so earth is spirit. And it's the same thing, and therefore land is spirit. It's where spirit has been infused into land. And that's the same idea as Uranus with Taurus here, that in Taurus, spirit descends into form as the second sign. And it also, I think, incorporates this idea, because, okay, and I will stop myself by saying North nodes in Gemini and South nodes in Sag. So you could say philosophy, belief systems, and new information. So that's like the theme of all of our collaboration and talking and greater comprehensions, because maybe we haven't been looking at something from one angle and somebody else can see it from their angle, just like I'm over here and you're over there. But back to Uranus here at 6 degrees Taurus, in the mythology of it, oh, and I didn't get into the mythology of Europa, but mythology of Uranus is the sky and Gaia, Earth. And of course, Sky did what Sky would do with Earth, which was just as it is. But there is this thought that maybe it's also been with the idea that we take too many resources. And so to re-establish our sense with creation and with incorporating the spirit infused in form, and to listen, Taurus is also the senses. It's what we see, what we hear, what we touch, taste.
So they're also being heightened at this time too.
Yes, I think, yes, absolutely. Especially since you brought up Mars. Right now, of course, it's just as it transits through Taurus is going to be powerful for this new moon. Go ahead.
Yeah. I love incorporating new moons especially in Capricorn. Like this one is just, if there's a habit you want to incorporate or break, or just changing up a health routine or schedule, or challenge yourself to learn something new, that like finding the self-discipline and the will to make it work and to really integrate that. This is a very heightened new moon to do that. And for me personally, I would not wait until the sliver of the first moon. I would do this on the new moon on the Tuesday, the 12th, to do that.
There's good choices. I think that's where for different peoples it can work. And to be honest, it's nice to know that one hasn't just missed the boat, right? The boat didn't go off to dock. There's a little dinghy. You can get to the boat. You can still go on. So whether, because there's different philosophies with this, but I will bring up that now that we have, in fact, I'm going to stop sharing and get back to you guys so we can see our little happy faces. There you are. Hi again. And announcing to our public that with this daily mini connections, we will this week, Liz one day and then Sara one day of the next 6 days, we will talk about the full moon and how we can release it, because Sara they each have their skills, and they will incorporate into it how we can maybe help people release things that they want to. And it's only 10 minutes. It's quick. And then the week of the 12th, Liz and Sara, each one of us will identify how we can address the new moon. So that's going to be exciting and fun. Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with Sara that this new moon is very powerful. Like if you want to do any transformational work, any dark soul shadow work, start counseling, journaling, anything like that, it's like a really good time to do that, because the energy is very supportive for that.
And when you say particularly, is that thinking because it's about the structure of things that it's
the
like,
sun and moon are conjunct Pluto, and Pluto is very helpful to do any kind of shadow work, any kind of deep transformational work, and they're so close together. So it's super powerful.
Yeah, it wants to transform.
And thank you both, because in words are tools, and it's so easy to get a little disjointed. That's where it's always necessary to ground, and that's where Uranus wants us to ground so desperately. And because the words are like, oh, transform. Okay, instead of making these eggs into this thing, I'll make eggs into that thing. But no, that's a simple thing. And yet it's complex. It's intense. And we're all feeling the intensity. And I say that after all these months of my own transformation coming over. So I respect what you're saying. Next week will be 2021. And I don't know yet who's going to be our wonderful guests, so it'll be a surprise. And for those people that want to subscribe, you can subscribe at Talk Cosmos, the website. You can subscribe for the YouTube. There's multitude of ways to connect with us. And of course, you can go to Talk Cosmos and find Liz Muschett, A Light Path, or you can find Sara Stromley at Brain Body Therapy, and I will eventually be elaborating on my own website so that you can connect with me for consultations. But at this point, we're just thrilled to be expanding and connecting and wanting to know who you are. Thank you for that person that wrote in. I hope I answered. You can always connect with me at info@talkcosmos. And we should say something to people as we take off. I'm going to say inspired abundance with every blessing. Liz, what are you going to say?
Happy New Year.
And Sarah?
Yes, Happy New Year and many deep layered healing with all this. So, yeah.
Yes, and you know what? The time, although like last week we were talking about time is right now, but you know what? The Earth spins 24 hours, as we know, with the moon, and we have natural time. So we can confidently say, thank you, 2020, for whatever you gave us. And I am willing to release and go on to 2021.
Yes,
Okay.
sounds good.
Mwah.
See you next time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you for listening to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Be sure to tune in next Saturday at 6 p.m. to continue finding your roots in the stars.
The views expressed.
So are we going to Zoom each other on Sue's line now?